The rain hammered against the bus shelter where Keisha Thompson counted her last $5. Her daughter Amara pressed against her side, shivering in a too-thin jacket that couldn't hide how much she'd grown this year. 3 years old and already understanding that mommy saying, "We'll eat later," meant there wasn't enough food. A white man in an expensive suit stumbled toward them, clutching his side. Blood seeped through his fingers. His designer shoes were scuffed and muddy. His face was pale with pain and fear. "Help me, please." His voice cracked with desperation. Keisha's instincts screamed danger. A bleeding stranger approaching in the dark. Every survival lesson she'd learned in South Chicago told her to grab Amara and run. But his eyes held something she recognized. The same terror she'd seen in her own mirror when the eviction notice came. The same helplessness she'd felt when Amara's father walked out. The same desperate hope that someone, anyone, might care enough to help. Keisha pulled out her phone with shaking hands. "I'm calling 911. No." The man grabbed her wrist weakly. "No hospitals. No police. They'll find me." "Who?" Keisha asked, already knowing she didn't want the answer. The man swayed dangerously. "I just need to get to a safe place. Somewhere they won't look." He pulled out a wallet thick with credit cards and cash. "I'll pay you. Whatever you want." Keisha stared at the money. Rent was 3 weeks overdue. The electricity would be shut off tomorrow. Amara needed new shoes, a winter coat, medicine for her persistent cough. But taking money from a bleeding man running from someone felt like crossing a line she couldn't uncross. "The bus is coming." Keisha made her decision. "Get on with us. You can clean up at my place. But I'm not taking your money." The man looked at her like she'd spoken a foreign language. "Why would you help me?" "Because somebody helped me once." Keisha remembered the neighbor who'd shared groceries when she had nothing. The church lady who'd paid for Amara's daycare for a month. The teacher who'd bought her interview clothes when she was desperate for work. The bus pulled up with a hydraulic hiss. Keisha helped the stranger aboard, using her last $5 to pay his fare along with theirs. The bus driver gave her a look that said she was making a mistake. Maybe she was. But Keisha had learned that sometimes the right choice and the safe choice weren't the same thing. Her apartment was a 4th-floor walk-up in a building that smelled like mold and desperation. Peeling paint-covered walls that hadn't been white in decades. The radiator clanked but barely produced heat. The refrigerator hummed loudly to compensate for a dying compressor. Keisha settled Amara on the worn couch with her only stuffed animal while she helped the stranger to the bathroom. "What's your name?" she asked, pulling out the first aid kit she'd assembled from dollar store supplies. "Marcus." He winced as she cleaned the wound. "Marcus Chin." The cut wasn't as bad as all the blood suggested. Shallow but long, like someone had slashed at him with a knife and mostly missed. "Who did this?" Keisha asked as she worked. Marcus was silent for a long moment. "People who think I stole something from them." "Did you?" Marcus met her eyes. "No. But they won't believe that until they find what they're looking for." Keisha finished bandaging him with careful precision. Her hands were steady despite her racing heart. She'd learned to stay calm in crisis when Amara was born premature and the doctors gave her a 30% chance of survival. "Thank you." Marcus stood slowly, testing his balance. "I should go before I bring my problems to your door." "Where will you go?" Marcus pulled out his phone, then cursed softly. "Dead battery. Can I use your phone to call someone?" Keisha handed him her prepaid cell with 47 minutes remaining until the month ran out. Marcus dialed a number from memory. His conversation was brief and cryptic. "I'm safe. Don't come to the usual places. I'll contact you when it's clear." He hung up and returned the phone. "They'll find me tomorrow. I just need to stay out of sight tonight. You can sleep on the couch." Keisha made the offer before her common sense could object. "But if you bring trouble here, if you put my daughter in danger, I will call the police myself." Marcus nodded solemnly. "I understand. And I promise the people looking for me won't think to search a place like this. No offense. None taken." Keisha knew exactly what her neighborhood looked like to people like Marcus. Invisible. Disposable. The kind of place wealthy people drove through with their doors locked and their eyes straight ahead. She made Marcus as comfortable as possible on the couch that had come with the apartment. then put Amara to bed in the room they shared. The little girl was already half asleep, her breathing raspy from the cough that wouldn't go away. "Mommy, is the man okay?" Amara whispered. "He will be, baby. We're helping him feel better. Like when you helped Mrs. Johnson when she fell." Exactly like that. Keisha kissed her daughter's forehead, marveling at how children understood kindness so naturally while adults learned to be suspicious. That night, Keisha barely slept. Every sound in the hallway made her heart race. Every car door slamming outside made her check that Marcus was still breathing on her couch. What had she done? Brought a stranger into her home. Used her last money on his bus fare. Put herself and Amara at risk for someone she didn't know. But as she watched Marcus sleep, she saw something beyond the expensive suit and mysterious danger. She saw someone alone and afraid, just like she'd been so many times. Morning came with weak sunlight through dirty windows. Keisha woke to find Marcus already awake, sitting carefully on the edge of the couch. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Better." Marcus gestured to the bandage. "You did good work. Are you a nurse?" Keisha laughed bitterly. "I clean offices. But when you're a single mom with no insurance, you learn basic first aid fast." She made breakfast from the little food she had left. Instant oatmeal for Amara. Black coffee for herself. Marcus tried to refuse the food, but Keisha insisted. As they ate, Marcus studied the apartment with careful attention. His eyes lingered on the stack of overdue bills on the counter, the empty refrigerator visible through the open door, Amara's two small clothes drying on a rack by the window. "How long have you lived here?" Marcus asked. 2 years. Since Amara's father left. Keisha saw no point in hiding her situation. It was written all over the apartment anyway. "And you work as a cleaner?" 3 buildings downtown. Night shift, 6 days a week. Keisha didn't mention that she'd been cut to 4 days last month, or that she was one more absence away from being fired completely. Marcus was quiet for a moment. "Last night, you spent your last money on my bus fare." It wasn't a question, but Keisha answered anyway. "The bus doesn't take IOUs." "Why?" Marcus leaned forward with intense curiosity. "You don't know me. I could be dangerous. I could be lying about everything. Could be." Keisha met his eyes steadily. "But what if you weren't? What if you really needed help and I just walked away?" "Most people would have." "I'm not most people." Keisha thought about all the times she'd needed help. All the times people had looked through her like she was invisible. All the times she'd been judged by her address, her skin color, her single mother status. "I know what it's like when nobody sees you." A knock at the door made them both freeze. Keisha's heart hammered as she moved to the peephole. A well-dressed Asian man stood in the hallway, looking completely out of place in the rundown building. He was scanning the corridor with the careful attention of someone trained in security. "Marcus, someone's here for you." Marcus stood slowly and checked the peephole himself. His shoulders relaxed. "It's okay. That's David, my head of security." "Head of security?" Keisha felt her stomach drop. "Who are you really?" Marcus opened the door to admit David, who immediately began a professional assessment of Marcus's condition. "Sir, we've secured the perimeter. The vehicle is ready whenever you are." "Thank you, David." Marcus turned to Keisha with an expression she couldn't read. "I need to explain something." Over the next 10 minutes, Marcus revealed a story that sounded like fiction. He was Marcus Chun, CEO of Chun Technologies, a company Keisha vaguely recognized from news headlines. Worth billions. Controlled major patents in renewable energy technology. The attack had come from corporate rivals trying to steal research data they thought Marcus carried. They'd ambushed him after a late meeting, but he'd escaped with only the knife wound. "I couldn't go to a hospital because they'd be watching. Couldn't go home for the same reason. I just needed to disappear for a few hours until David could secure my locations." "So you're actually rich." Keisha felt stupid for not recognizing him, then angry at herself for feeling stupid. "Actually rich." Marcus smiled without humor. "And you helped me anyway, even though you had nothing to gain." "I had $5 to gain." Keisha's tone was sharp. "You offered me money, remember? But you refused it." Marcus pulled out his wallet, still thick with cash and cards. "Why?" Because I'm not a charity case. Keisha's pride flared hot and defensive. I don't take handouts, even when you need them, especially then. Keisha had learned that accepting help always came with strings, expectations, judgments. She'd rather struggle alone than owe anyone anything. Marcus studied her for a long moment. What if I offered you something else? Not charity. An opportunity. I don't need opportunities from billionaires who feel guilty. What if you did? Marcus's voice was gentle but persistent. What if I could offer you a job, a real job, that used your actual intelligence instead of just your ability to push 'em up? You don't know anything about my intelligence. I know you assessed a dangerous situation, made a strategic decision, provided medical care with limited resources, and showed more courage in one night than most people show in a lifetime. Marcus gestured around the apartment. And I know you're doing all of this alone while raising a daughter and working 3 jobs. That takes intelligence, strength, and determination. Keisha felt tears threatening and pushed them back with practiced force. What kind of job? Marcus pulled out a business card. Come to my office on Monday. We'll discuss it properly. But I'm thinking facilities management. You know, buildings, you know, maintenance, you know what actually needs to be done versus what looks good on paper. Facilities management. Keisha turned the card over in her hands. The address was in the most expensive part of downtown. Starting salary is $75,000. Full benefits, childcare assistance, educational reimbursement if you want to get certifications. The number hit Keisha like a physical blow. She made $22,000 a year across all her cleaning jobs. $75,000 was impossible. Unreal. Too good to be true. Why? The question came out as a whisper. Because last night you saw a person who needed help and you helped them. Marcus's voice was firm. You didn't see a business opportunity. You didn't see someone to exploit. You saw a human being in trouble and you responded with kindness. That's rarer than you think, especially in my world. This is charity. Keisha's pride warred with her desperation. This is business. Marcus stood carefully, testing his wound. I need someone in facilities management who actually understands how buildings work, how people work, how to make systems function efficiently. You've been surviving in impossible conditions for years. Imagine what you could do with actual resources. Keisha looked at Amara, still eating her oatmeal and watching cartoons on a television that only got 3 channels. She thought about the eviction notice, the shut-off warnings, the constant calculation of which bill could wait another week. Monday, she said quietly. I'll come Monday. Marcus nodded and moved toward the door with David. Before leaving, he turned back. Keisha, what you did last night, helping a stranger with your last $5, that wasn't foolish. That was extraordinary. Don't let the world convince you otherwise. After they left, Keisha sat in her empty apartment, holding the business card like it might disappear. Amara climbed into her lap. Mommy, why are you crying? Because sometimes, baby, kindness comes back to you. Keisha held her daughter close, allowing herself to hope for the first time in years. The weekend crawled by with agonizing slowness. Keisha researched Chun Technologies obsessively on the library computer. Marcus Chun was real. The company was real. The job offer might actually be real. But doubt crept in during the quiet moments. What if it was a cruel joke? What if she showed up Monday and security laughed her out of the building? What if this was just a rich man's guilt that would evaporate once he was safe? Monday morning arrived with cruel sunshine. Keisha dressed in her best outfit, which meant her only outfit that didn't have stains or holes. She dropped Amara at the neighbor's place, promising to be back by noon. The Chun Technologies building was glass and steel, reaching toward the sky like a monument to wealth and power. Keisha felt small walking through the revolving doors into a lobby that probably cost more than her entire building. The receptionist looked her up and down with barely concealed judgment. Can I help you? I have an appointment with Marcus Chin. Keisha kept her voice steady despite her racing heart. The receptionist's expression shifted from dismissive to confused. Name? Keisha Thompson. One moment. The receptionist made a call, her tone shifting to respectful confusion. Sir, there's a Keisha Thompson here? Yes, sir. Of course, sir. She hung up and gestured to the elevators with newfound politeness. Top floor. Mr. Chun is expecting you. The elevator ride felt like ascending to another world. Each floor number represented a level of success Keisha had never imagined reaching. The top floor opened directly into an executive suite that looked like something from a magazine. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed the entire city spread below. Art that probably cost millions hung on walls. Everything gleamed with expensive perfection. Marcus stood near the windows, looking healthier than he had in her apartment. His suit was different, perfectly tailored, probably worth more than 3 months of her rent. Keisha. He smiled warmly. Thank you for coming. I wasn't sure you were serious. Keisha admitted her doubt. I'm always serious about business. Marcus gestured to a conference table. Please sit. Over the next hour, Marcus outlined a job that sounded impossible. Director of Facilities Operations. Overseeing maintenance, security, efficiency improvements across all Chun Technologies properties. The salary was real. The benefits were comprehensive. The childcare assistance would cover Amara's preschool completely. But there's something else. Marcus pulled out a folder. I did some research over the weekend. You went to community college for 2 years before Amara was born. Keisha stiffened. I couldn't finish. Life got complicated. You were studying business administration. Top of your class. Marcus slid papers across the table. I'm offering educational reimbursement. Finish your degree. Get your MBA if you want. Chun Technologies will cover it completely. Keisha stared at transcripts she hadn't seen in 3 years. Grades that represented a life before everything fell apart. Dreams she'd buried under survival. Why are you doing this? The question came out raw and vulnerable. Marcus met her eyes with absolute honesty. Because talent is everywhere, but opportunity isn't. Because you helped me when you had every reason not to. Because I believe in investing in people who demonstrate character under pressure. This feels like too much. It's exactly enough. Marcus's voice was firm. Keisha, you've been surviving on scraps while having the intelligence and work ethic to excel. I'm not giving you charity. I'm giving you what you've already earned. Keisha felt tears she couldn't control. Years of struggle, of being invisible, of being dismissed, all crashing into this impossible moment of being seen. I don't know what to say. Say yes. Marcus smiled. Say you'll take the job, finish your degree, and show everyone what you're actually capable of. Keisha thought about Amara, about the eviction notice, about cleaning other people's offices while her own potential gathered dust. Yes. The word came out stronger than she expected. Yes, I'll take the job. Marcus stood and extended his hand. Welcome to Chun Technologies, Director Thompson. The handshake felt like crossing into a different life. Keisha's mind raced with logistics. She'd need professional clothes, childcare arrangements, a plan for finishing her degree while working full-time. But beneath the practical concerns, something else bloomed. Hope. Real, tangible hope that maybe kindness wasn't foolish. Maybe helping others could create ripples that came back as waves. 1 week later, Keisha started her new position. The facilities team was skeptical at first. A former cleaner as their director? But Keisha knew buildings better than anyone. She understood what actually needed fixing versus what looked good in reports. Within a month, she'd implemented efficiency improvements that saved the company $200,000. Within 3 months, employee satisfaction in facilities management had increased by 40%. Marcus watched her success with quiet satisfaction. During their weekly meetings, he'd often reference that night in her apartment. You know what impressed me most? Marcus said during one meeting. Not that you helped me. Plenty of people help when it costs them nothing. You helped me when it cost you everything you had. It was $5. Keisha had learned to accept compliments without deflecting. It was your last $5. Marcus corrected. There's a difference. Keisha's story spread through Chun Technologies. The cleaner who became a director. The single mom who helped a stranger and changed her life. But Keisha knew the real story was different. She hadn't helped Marcus to get something in return. She'd helped him because that's who she was. The job, the opportunity, the new life, those were consequences, not motivations. 6 months into her position, Keisha stood in the same lobby where she'd felt so small. Now she walked through with confidence, greeting security by name, heading to meetings where her opinions mattered. Amara was thriving in the company's childcare program. Keisha had enrolled in night classes to finish her degree. The eviction notice was a memory. The shut-off warnings were gone. But the biggest change was internal. Keisha had learned that her kindness wasn't weakness. Her compassion wasn't foolishness. Her willingness to help others, even at personal cost, was actually her greatest strength. Marcus called her to his office one afternoon. "I have a proposition." "Another one?" Keisha smiled. "The last one worked out pretty well. I'm starting a foundation." Marcus pulled out plans and projections, focused on identifying talented people in underserved communities, providing opportunities, not charity. "I want you to help run it." Keisha studied the documents. The foundation would offer job training, educational support, childcare assistance, all the things she'd needed but couldn't access. "You want me to find more people like me. I want you to find people who demonstrate character, intelligence, and determination despite their circumstances." Marcus's voice was passionate. "Talent is everywhere, Keisha. We just need to look in places most people ignore." The foundation launched 6 months later. Keisha interviewed hundreds of candidates. Single parents working multiple jobs. Immigrants with advanced degrees working as janitors. Formerly incarcerated people trying to rebuild their lives. Each person had a story. Each person had potential that circumstances had buried. The foundation's first year placed 200 people in jobs that matched their abilities instead of their situations. The second year, that number doubled. Keisha became a voice for the invisible. She spoke at conferences about hidden talent. She challenged companies to look beyond traditional credentials. She proved that intelligence and competence existed in places most people never thought to look. 3 years after that rainy night at the bus shelter, Keisha stood on a stage accepting an award for community leadership. Marcus sat in the front row, smiling with pride. In her acceptance speech, Keisha told the truth. "I didn't help Marcus Chen because I expected anything in return. I helped him because that's what we're supposed to do for each other. We're supposed to see people who need help and we're supposed to help them." She paused, looking out at an audience of business leaders and community organizers. The miracle wasn't that kindness was rewarded. The miracle was that kindness existed at all in a world that tells us to look out for ourselves first. After the ceremony, a young woman approached Keisha nervously. She was wearing a cleaning uniform, obviously on break from work. "Ms. Thompson, I heard your story. I'm working 3 jobs, trying to support my kids, and I don't know how to get out." Keisha saw herself in the woman's exhausted eyes. "Tell me about yourself. What are you good at?" As the woman talked, Keisha listened with the same attention Marcus had given her. She heard potential beneath the desperation. She saw talent hidden by circumstances. "Come to my office tomorrow." Keisha handed her a card. "Let's talk about opportunities." The cycle continued. Kindness creating opportunity, creating more kindness. Each person helped becoming someone who could help others. Marcus watched from across the room, remembering a bleeding stranger being helped by someone with nothing to give except compassion. That night, as Keisha tucked Amara into bed in their new apartment, her daughter asked the question she'd been asking for 3 years. "Mommy, why did you help that man when we didn't have any money?" Keisha thought about all the ways to answer, about opportunity and reward and how things worked out. But she settled on the truth. "Because he needed help, baby. And when someone needs help, we help them if we can. Even if it costs us everything, especially then." Keisha kissed her daughter's forehead. "Because that's when it matters most." Amara smiled sleepily. "When I grow up, I want to help people like you do." "You already do, baby. Every day." As Keisha turned out the light, she reflected on the journey from that bus shelter to this moment. $5 had changed her life, but not because of what it bought, because of what it represented. The willingness to see others, the courage to help despite personal cost, The faith that kindness mattered even when the world suggested otherwise. Marcus had given her an opportunity, but she'd given him something first. A reminder that humanity existed in unexpected places. That character couldn't be bought or credentialed. That sometimes the people with the least had the most to teach. The story of Keisha Thompson and Marcus Chun became legend in business circles. The cleaner and the CEO. The last $5 that became millions in social impact. But for Keisha, the real story was simpler. She'd helped someone who needed help. Everything else was just what happened when kindness met opportunity. And somewhere in the city, another person was making the choice to help or walk away. Another moment was arriving where compassion would be tested against self-interest. Keisha hoped they'd choose kindness. Not because it might be rewarded, but because that's what makes us human.